Okay, here is something of an imaginative task for you, okay? Um, Without further ado, imagine that you're living with your mom in a dingy old tiny apartment, okay? It features old furniture. The floors in the apartment creak. Sometimes you see cockroaches or spiders or even a mouse or rat in the apartment, okay? Um, you're living in a cold, barren, uh, kind of non affectionate area of Russia. You eat the simplest diet conceivable for somebody with your economic status, which is basically, how do I put this? You're generally poor and you're living on a small amount of money that you might receive either as part of a allowance, some kind of allowance, or maybe you receive assistance from the government or something, okay? You're temporarily in a condition of need, so you consume black bread, kefir, cheap black tea, veggies, soup, and nothing that could be described as decadent. For all intents and purposes, your diet is ascetic. It's even austere. You don't have a rich social life. Right now, you're surrounded only by textbooks and papers, and maybe a cheap little netbook that only cost you about $65 in the year 2024. You're solving a problem that hasn't been solved in 1,000 years since its inception. Why you're doing this is because you're, I guess, intrinsically motivated to take on some kind of cognitive behemoth, um, partly for the selfish tranquility you can obtain when you're lost in a world of abstractions that has no pertinence to whatever it is that's going on in your sensory environment. Your cognitive and personality profile is constituted in a way that makes you predisposed to dwell deeply within cerebral worlds rather than within your sensory environment. You've been honing your abilities in secret for your whole life, primarily through sustained meditative and strenuous single tasking. You don't care about money, followers, sex, material items, or your local reputation. Okay, all you really care about is the truth and how you can maximize your proximity to the truth, no matter how painful that is, and no matter who that cuts you off of. Um, you wear cheap, raggedy clothes, and you're often mistaken for a homeless bum whenever you go out into public and maybe take public transportation. Your hair is wild and messy. You don't always cut your nails on time. You might have a little bit of halitosis. Um, you may look a little bit more like a scarecrow than a standard, respectable, civilized modern man who is clean cut and wears form fitting polo shirts while uh, adorning himself in redolent colognes. And you spend 7 long, quiet, difficult years solving this extremely difficult problem. And you do it in isolation. There are no rewards for it in the present other than that of whatever it is you derive through solitary, inventive, sort of Faustian or Promethean thinking. And if and when you obtain rewards for solving this problem, you're going to reject them and just go back to living in this kind of a life while you attend to abstractions that are not going to profit you financially, because all you care about is improving your proximity and everyone else's proximity to the truth itself. So help you God. If this is the kind of person you are, if this is the kind of life you live, under no forced compulsion whatsoever, then I think it can be said that for somebody with your cognitive powers, particularly relative to hyper-avaricious people like a certain near trillionaire I won't mention, you may be deserving of a position of influence that you would never naturally seek, given the way in which you're formed, and given your history of self-crafting actions. So this illustration, this thought experiment, is about Grigori Perelman. This is the kind of life he had set up. Okay? The most cacophonous or chaotic or stimulating thing in his life might have just been the sound of a tea kettle boiling in his dingy, shitty little apartment every day. And that is when, I guess, it wasn't particularly cold out as he went to the grocery store and bought himself bare-bones grocery items. That certainly wouldn't have pleased his taste buds or the portions of his brain which would accustom somebody like me or you to seeking cheap sources of dopamine. So I believe that Grigori deserves kind of an enormous extent of power relative to what he has granted himself or what he's been given by anyone. But I have to articulate that in what is likely going to be annoyingly detailed long-form arguments. Because I think nobody really picks up on the fact that he has profound cross-domain capacities that maybe no other mortal being does. With respect to whoever it is that's out in public, there may be an Edward Whitten or a Terence Tao or, people like that who could be in a similar ballpark to him, but I don't want like a realistic grasping of his total potential to slip through the cracks of public consciousness. And I would labor hard to try to articulate what I think he could get done if he receives power or money or influence or whatever on terms that suit him. So if he wants to stay in private and only communicate with the public through something like a Substack blog upon which he disables comments and doesn't engage with users, then that is certainly his right, privilege, and I would be glad to chip in whatever little money I have, a few dollars a month, to see him continue to contribute to the informational comments and hopefully write some practical advice for us. Imagine how beautiful the world could be if sort of virtuous, upstanding men like him are justifiably given positions of influence. The world shall not see his like again. All right, thank you for watching and have a good day. And God bless you.